I have a confession to make. A secret that I typically don't tell people about myself until after I've gotten to know them. Something that many people find embarrassing and weird. I am a wrestling fan, and I'm not ashamed of it. Now, I don't know how you personally feel about wrestling. You may be a fan like me, or you may feel absolutely nothing about the sport. Or you may vitriolically hate it, thinking that it's just plain stupid, as many do. You may be among the many whose first thought is, you know it's fake, right? Yes, I'm aware. That's the point. When you go to see a movie, you know it's fake too. You know that at the end of the day, Captain America will always win and Thanos will always lose. So why do you go to the movies? Because it's fun. And that's wrestling. It's easy to think of wrestling as a form of theater. Professional wrestling is just a really action-heavy play where the script changes every week. I genuinely believe that professional wrestling is one of the greatest art forms that we have. American philosopher Philip Brooks once said, professional wrestling is one of the only art forms that America has actually given to the world, beside jazz and comic books. For the sake of honesty, Philip Brooks is better known by his stage name, CM Punk, but that is beside the point. Professional wrestling is a perfect mixture of gymnastics, improv, theater, martial arts, and cinema. The first wrestling match I ever watched was the 2018 Men's Royal Rumble. You may think that 2018 was a little bit late for a lifelong wrestling fan, and you're right. I'm not a lifelong wrestling fan. I didn't get into wrestling until I was 17. I was up late, finishing an essay, when a bootleg copy of the match appeared on my YouTube feed. I clicked on it just for fun, not knowing how it would change my life. For those of you who don't know, a Royal Rumble is a type of match that starts with 2 wrestlers in the ring. Every 2 minutes, a new wrestler enters the ring. If you get thrown out of the ring, you lose. The last person standing in the ring wins. It is the best match in wrestling. If you have an hour, go watch one. Most of them are on YouTube for free. The 2018 Royal Rumble starts with Rusev and Finn Balor. Rusev is your prototypical Russian villain stereotype, but Finn Balor is something special. Introduced as a newbie and a rising fan favorite, he almost instantly becomes the underdog. He's smaller and skinnier than most of the other men in the ring, but that does not seem to stop him. Wrestler after wrestler enters the ring, but Finn Balor stays. He has a few close calls, but he never gives up. He always fights his way back into the match. It's near impossible to not root for the guy. You just feel yourself clenching with nerves whenever he gets close to getting thrown out, and feel the excitement running through your body as he manages to overpower the larger wrestlers. After nearly an hour in a ring, it finally happens. He's eliminated. He's thrown out of the ring after such hard work. Your heart can't help to break seeing the exhaustion on the young man's face. Any expectation for how the match might go is thrown out of the window. In any other media, the underdog newbie who fights his way to the end would be the one to win. And that's how heroes work. That's how stories work. But not in wrestling. Needing a home, your support flows to the other underdog in the ring, a Japanese wrestler named Shinsuke Nakamura, who does the impossible and manages to win the match. I was hooked after this. I went to sleep after finishing it and started watching it the next morning. May or may not have finished the essay. I actually don't know. I immediately tried to talk to my friends about it and showed them how amazing it was. At the time, my friends were the pretentious, snooty art school types and balked at my suggestion. They laughed whenever I praised it and refused to even try it. From then, I kept my love of wrestling on the down low, keeping it to myself as I watched match after match in my downtime. Not too long later, I had started dating someone. I remember telling her about my love of wrestling in a gentle and nervous manner, like she was going to break up with me over it. I did expect her to find it stupid and make fun of me, but she didn't. She told me about how her mom was really into wrestling in the 90s and used to buy the pay-per-views when they could afford it. I was ecstatic, finally finding someone who could talk to about this interest after I kept it locked up for so long. Another person in my life who was a wrestling fan was my Granny Betsy. In the 80s and 90s, in the golden days of wrestling, she would watch with my cousins. She took my cousin Dylan to see Hulk Hogan during the prime days of Hulkamania. She would never proclaim herself as a wrestling fan, but everyone knew she loved it. In the last couple of months of Granny Betsy's life, my Aunt Chris stayed with her to keep her company. They would always flick through the channels looking for something to watch, and every now and then they'd land on wrestling. Granny Betsy would always tell her to stop, and they'd watch the rest of the episode. She wasn't an avid fan or anything, but she enjoyed what she saw. I'm told that her favorite wrestler was Roman Reigns, because she thought he was attractive. One of the last pictures ever taken of her was her sitting in her favorite chair, chugging a bottle of port while she watched Friday Night SmackDown. Unfortunately, I never talked to Granny Betsy about wrestling. I was always too nervous. She was so important to me that I didn't want her to think I was stupid or childish for liking it. I know it sounds ridiculous given that I was aware that she at least liked watching it, but that's how I felt. There's one time where I was going to. My sister and I were visiting her, bringing her Popeye's chicken sandwiches as a price for entry. I can't remember why, but something in the conversation allowed for me to ask her that. I opened my mouth to speak, and then closed it. I stayed quiet, and the conversation moved on. A few minutes later, she started to fall asleep in the chair, so me and my sister excused ourselves, knowing that she was too tired to keep up conversation. That was the last time I talked to my Granny Betsy. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like not talking about wrestling was my biggest hang-up about Granny Betsy's death, or that it was a tragedy in any major way. There's lots of more important things that I wish I got to talk to her about, but it's something that bothers me. I wish I got the opportunity to hear her stories about taking Dylan to see Hulk Hogan. I wish I got to hear her rave about how she loves Roman Reigns, but I was too scared to look like an idiot. I was too ashamed of something that I loved that I didn't want to talk about it with someone who I loved. And now I won't get the chance. And that's what's going to stick with me for a very long time. I don't want to be ashamed anymore. I don't want this to be a dark secret. I am a wrestling fan, and I'm not ashamed of it.